everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to press, aka iron, special occasion fabrics. So in the previous video I showed you how to hem special occasion fabrics. So I've got all of my samples here, including my very lovely and tricky pleated chiffon. So first and foremost, I'll show you my favorite fabric and how to press this bad boy. So this is a double-faced wool crepe, and we did our fun little hidden tucked hem here. First things first, get to know all of the settings on your iron. My particular iron has this setting that I can adjust for how much steam, like level from low to high. This opening allows me to put water into the iron. It's always good to use distilled water for your iron because it doesn't calcify when you use the steam setting. On my particular iron, I have a fabric selector, which has like a little LED guide down here, which allows me to change the setting depending on the type of fabric that I am pressing or steaming. This is typical for most irons. On mine, the lowest setting is for nylon fabrics. The second setting is for wool and silk. The third highest setting is for polyester, and the highest or the hottest is for linen and cotton fabrics. So on my iron, I can either spritz water using this setting. It just looks like kind of like a spray bottle. And on the other has the steam. So the steam is your BFF when you're pressing or ironing anything. And the water obviously comes out of this little hole here. Just try and keep your hands clear of obviously the metal plate because it gets super duper hot. And try to keep your iron standing upwards all the time. Most modern irons have an auto shut off when you stop using them. So that means that the iron won't be completely off, but it will cool down. So when you first turn your iron on, adjust your setting. You can put it face down onto the ironing board and give it a little zhuzh, and it'll begin to heat up. Don't press your steam setting too many times. Just be patient, because as the iron begins warming up, the steam will become more functional. I know that sounds weird, but you just have to like let the iron wake up first. I always use a presser cloth. You can just use like a piece of muslin or some remnant cotton fabric. So when I'm pressing my double-faced wool crepe, I never put the iron face down on the fabric because the setting might be too high. If you don't know the content of your fabric, maybe there's like polyester fibers in there, it will melt the fabric if the setting on the iron is too warm. So this would be my hem. If you had seams, it would be the same instance. With the seams, you would press them open. So you would fold them open first by hand, put your presser cloth over top, like I'm gonna do with my hem here. And then I'm gonna press my steam setting, and I'm gonna slowly lift just a little bit as I move across my hem. You can give your fabric a second to cool before you pick it up, lift it from the iron, and you get a really nice crisp edge pressed into your double-faced wool crepe. We'll move on to another of the wool family for evening wear fabrics. And this is item number 325512. It is an Italian scarlet stretch wool crepe, and it's in red. I like this fabric as well. It doesn't have as much sponginess or body as the double-faced wool crepe, but it still has that crepey feel, those crimped threads. And when we're pressing this type of fabric as well, to get this nice, really hard edge, which you would also do when you're pressing your seams open, is still continue to use the presser cloth. So you can just put the presser cloth flat onto your fabric. I have my setting on my wool and silk setting, which is my second, and I'm gonna use steam again. I'm gonna lift and move. I do not have a tailor's ham, but if you do have one, there is a wool side that kind of looks like a Scottish plaid, and you can actually turn it over so that the plaid is matching your fabric, and you can hold them down against each other. and it actually helps the wool fabric absorb the steam that was set from the iron. So it gives you even like a crisper finish after you've done your pressing. So we're gonna move on to velvet. Velvet is really tricky. I think I mostly just picked this swatch because it's another red one. So this is from my hem demo. When you're pressing velvet, what you wanna do is you wanna take a towel. If you have like a hand towel you don't use anymore, or you know, maybe you have like a towel from washing the car or something, you can grab that as long as it's clean. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put the nap side, which has the pile, that spongy, velvety, soft side, and you're gonna put that face down onto the towel. What that's gonna do is it's gonna keep the iron from flattening the pile of the velvet. We're not so concerned with flattening the back side because it's the back side, no one's gonna see it. So again, you're gonna take your presser cloth, and I'm gonna work with a lower setting for my velvet. Still gonna keep my steam at the same amount. You don't necessarily need to use steam on velvet. It's better just to use like a low setting. You don't have to press down super firm either when you're pressing this fabric, because you do not want to crush the pile on the right side. But that's the beauty of using a towel, is that the pile of the velvet versus the pile, if you will, or the texture of the towel keeps this from becoming flattened, because they kind of like mesh into each other, if you will. So be sure you're on a low setting, and then you can press and get a really nice crisp line on your velvet. This is a polyester velvet, so again, you want to keep the setting low mostly so it doesn't crush the pile of the fabric. And be sure you're always using your presser cloth as well. And that is pressing velvet. So I'm gonna remove my towel because we don't need that anymore. I'm gonna jump into another of my wool crepe fabrics. I love this one because it has like a little bit of shine to it. This is the right side, this is the back side. So this is a sample from the hem video as well. So I'm just gonna take my presser cloth again, put that face down. And because this is a wool content fabric, I'm gonna change my setting back to the wool setting on my iron. I like to just give it like a little zhuzh so that the water can really flow through the iron. There's usually like a max setting as well on your iron, so you never wanna fill past that, because then you're gonna have a flood. And I'm just lifting a little. You can push a little as well while you're ironing this, depending on what you're ironing. Like depending if you're doing the hem or you're doing like a curved seam or something. With curved seams, you would always slash your seam allowance before you spread it open and then place your pressing cloth and use your iron. I'll do another video where I show you how to use the Taylor ham when pressing curved seams. But now that we have the presser cloth over our other wool crepe, I mean, look at how nice and beautiful and clean that bottom looks there. And then when you flip it to the right side, you can almost barely see the edging from the bias tape underneath. And this fabric, it steams really well too. So once you have a finished garment, you can hang it up and you can actually just use the steam setting on your iron as a steamer. So let's jump ahead to brocade. This is the right side of the brocade. We're gonna flip to the wrong side again. You have to be careful because the lurex or the metallic threads in your brocade are very keen on melting. So when you're ironing or pressing brocade fabrics, you don't want to flatten the embossed threads, the embossed design. So again, I'm going to use my presser cloth and I'm going to turn my iron back to a low setting. And I'm not gonna use steam on this one. I'm just gonna zhuzh my iron a little back and forth so it can get kind of warm on the plate. And then I'm just gonna use the heat. And I'm just going along the bottom edge of the hem there, back and forth. You can always drop your iron, wait a few seconds, move that back and forth. But I don't want to keep too much heat because I don't want to melt the Lurex, you know, these metallic threads in my brocade. But that looks so nice and flat. Even the bias tape looks really well pressed. And then you flip to the right side, and we didn't lose any of the dimension from the design on the fabric. But you can see how crispy that is. That's the beauty of brocades. You get like a lot of dimension and it looks like super duper expensive. There's so much texture. You can even work with like both sides, the right side or the wrong side, if you want to have like a little bit more shine, or do like your panels in, you know, using the right side and the wrong side. Kind of looks like you're using two different fabrics. All right, so now we're going to press our iridescent chiffon. This goes the same for pressing good old-fashioned regular chiffon that doesn't have that metallic iridescent effect. You're gonna have the fabric facing down on the iron and your presser cloth again. And I'm gonna have this on a lower setting. I'm gonna zhuzh my iron once more. You always wanna practice first because I'm not an expert on pressing, but I'm an expert on like evening wear fabrics. I'll take that to the grave with me, but you have to practice on a scrap piece before you go to pressing on your final garment because every fabric reacts to every iron differently. So for my chiffon, I'm just kind of like zigzagging my iron, not using any steam. We don't want to melt that metallic thread. Well, iridescent, shiny thread. And then you can let it sit for a second. Peel back your presser cloth. If you're not totally happy with this, like I said, be sure you practice first. Let's try some steam. Notice how I'm only hitting the hem. And then we flip that to the right side, and it's nice and crisp. Super clean. Okay, next we have our organza. And in the hem video, I actually did this applique with an invisible thread, which will melt. Here's the invisible thread. It's amazing. You can get this on Mood Fabrics as well. This is great for doing applique or beading because you don't have to worry about what color the fabric is or what color the beads are. You can use the invisible thread for that. So with organza, typically I would just hit it with a little bit of steam while it's either on the mannequin or on a hanger. And I would do it from the wrong side for sure. But since we have a baby rolled hem here, I'm gonna flip this again to the wrong side. I'm gonna take my pressing cloth, put it over top. And because this organza tends to crinkle really bad and get wrinkles like nobody's business. So I'm gonna set this to my silk setting, and I am gonna use steam. So I'm putting pressure down on the iron as I hit the steam and move forward. And now we're gonna have a really nice, hard, crisp edge on the bottom there. Wow, that's amazing. See, organza is really beautiful, but it's so complex to work with. Practice makes perfect. So here we have our stretch silk satin. Because this applique hem doesn't actually need to be pressed, I would definitely recommend, if you were to do the applique eyelash hem, to just keep your garment hanging and to do steam. Don't bother with ironing, because if there are polyester threads in your lace, not on your fabric, the lace could end up like shrinking, and that'll mess up all of your applique. So if you need to, hit it with steam while it's on a hanger from the wrong side, and be sure that your setting is low. Start with a low setting. Work your way up. Don't hit the steam too many times, because then you're just gonna get like a river flowing out of your iron and it's gonna make a big mess, and you don't wanna put stains on your fabric. So this is our last fabric. We've got our pleated chiffon. So there are a lot of different ways that you can press, steam, iron. I don't necessarily recommend ironing this pleated, any type of pleated fabric, because you're gonna lose the pleats. So I would just hang this on a hanger as well, and I would steam it from the wrong side and try not to hit the pleats, like make full contact with your iron or steamer. But if you're feeling ambitious, you can re-pleat your pleats, which is gonna take forever. You have to be really meticulous, and you can pin your fabric to the ironing board, but you need to be like super duper careful, because you don't want that pin to leave a mark in your fabric. So I'm gonna just like trust myself here with hopes that I am pleating this correctly. And that's becoming a little too thick, I think. Now I'm just gonna hit with the tip of my iron, a little bit of steam. I'm still on the silk setting. Just hit that hem. Oh look, voila, it turned out. Not too shabby. So you can see we got like our pleats back. And when I sewed this, I used the roller hem foot, which you can find on moodfabrics.com, which is awesome because it does all the work for you. And you can use the roller hem foot not only on chiffon, but on cotton sateen. You can use it on denim. As long as the fabrics are lightweight enough, I mean, not to say they have to be like chiffon weight, but if they're lightweight enough, then the baby roll hem foot will work. So that is pressing our evening wear fabrics. Bear in mind that you need to adjust the settings on your iron depending on what type of fabric you are pressing. And always practice on a scrap piece before you do your official final garment. And if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, need recommendations for an iron or any other materials, feel free to leave comments below. Thank you guys for tuning in.